Well, good day, everyone, and welcome to another show, a Humans and Wildlife show. So, I'm here with my co host Georgia Oteri as usual. And, Georgia, what have we got today?
Hi, Christian, and welcome everyone. So, today we're talking about how species survive at the temperature extremes of life. So, how they live in very hot and also very cold environments. And it's a little bit of a fitting topic because, at least right now, we're undergoing a big seasonal shift in our environment. Isn't that right, Christian?
Yes, very much so. I mean, this topic is as hot or as cold as you want it to be because it is so interesting. It touches about everything that we almost don't know or recently discovered, and probably a lot about the life in the universe that we don't even know about. So let's get right into it, Georgia. How do
Yeah,
you want to
you're
go?
right. Yeah, I'm like, wow, it's getting warm here in Michigan, warming up a little bit, but really it's just a difference of like 20 degrees or so, right? But as we discussed, the temperature difference is 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Excuse my US
No, that's
bias.
okay.
But
That's
anyways, yeah, but I mean that temperature difference feels like a really big deal to me, but it's actually pretty mild compared to the huge span of temperature difference that can exist across the planet and also that exists like between our Earth and this relatively buffered system and, in outer space and the other elsewhere in our solar system. Temperature varies hugely.
so. How should we go about it, Georgia? What do you suggest? Do we start hot or cold, or should we ask our audience? What do you
I
think?
I think we should ask the audience. Yeah, so I see we have some people here. Yeah, everyone put in the chat if you feel like it what you want to start with. You want to talk about animals, organisms that live in extremely hot environments or extremely cold environments. So hello, welcome Sean and Anna and Frankman. I'm seeing who else we have here. Marina. Hello everyone. Um, yeah, Marina says, what about in California? It's crazy here. I actually don't know what it's like in California right now. I can look it up.
That's California. That's good.
Yeah, I always think of California as being like relatively mild or sort of consistent. Coastal areas kind of consistent in temperature, oftentimes because they have like the water buffering. But sometimes things can get crazy there.
So, do
Yeah.
you have any preference? Everybody out there, vote. Do you want to start with too hot or too cold?
Yeah,
Uh,
hot or cold.
just put it in a vote, and we'll start that way because we're going to tackle all topics today.
Yeah, we'll get to it all no matter what, we promise. Or we promise as much as we can. If we
Let's
don't get to
see.
it, we could get to it next week. So, um,
Oh, rain in South Africa. Yes, you know it's interesting. I mean, of course, I lived in South Africa for many years, and rain often is very welcome until it gets to flooding. And in Australia, they've got incredible flooding at the moment. So it's we've got some severe weather conditions. Yeah, almost.
yeah, so it
Oh, here's
looks
Amanda. That's good. Hi,
good.
Amanda. What would you like to start off with too hot or too cold? Let us know.
Yeah, we have, I think I'll let it go for a moment longer.
Yes, we'll go let it go for a moment longer. Hello,
Hi,
Helke, begrüße euch
Helgi.
alle. Well, greetings to you. That's very nice to see you.
Yeah.
There, there seems to be no preference. It's just,
Well, I think, I'm looking at Facebook too. I think we have hot winning out. Yeah, people are not so much
okay.
commenting on hot versus cold, but we'll start with hot. And so
Okay,
that
then
would
we'll start.
be
Then we'll start
you,
with hot.
Christian.
Okay, great. Then we'll start with a hot topic. Let's just shrink ourselves a bit like this. Okay, excellent. So the topic now is too hot. This is really amazing. I can tell you, I learned so much by just the preparation, and I hope I can convey my excitement to you equally. Because the first thing I learned is that in order to survive in too hot environments, we need special enzymes. So imagine we were covered, our skins were covered with special enzymes, and we could immerse ourselves in the hottest bathtubs. That's what it must be like. So these special enzymes make it possible to survive in about 180 degrees Fahrenheit, which is equivalent to about 82 degrees Celsius, which is quite amazing. And what surprised me most of all is that was only discovered in the 60s in Yellowstone Park. I thought this was much, biology was much further. I was shocked, It's something that happened during my lifetime. I can't believe this, that they actually discovered it then. So this is where the first hot, where these extreme bacteria were discovered. If you've ever been to Yellowstone or to Iceland or these very hot environments, you will know what I'm talking about. It's absolutely fascinating. Well, what is even more fascinating then is if you go deep into the oceans, and I didn't know that again happened so late. So in 1977, there was an expedition. They knew about these so-called hydrovents. Okay, and that's what I have on the screen there. The life in hydrothermal vents. So we are talking about so-called thermophiles. Okay, those are enzymes to withstand extreme heats and so on. And what is interesting is they went with a submarine very deep into these, where the continental rifts are, and where you have these. And I'm going to show you this whilst I talk, because it's much more interesting. This is fascinating to the utmost fascinating. I'm just going to put the video on behind me. Thank you, David Dunn. That's very nice to see you, by the way. Thank you. It's very nice. So I'm going to put this video on so you get entertained a little bit. So this was taken in the 90s. It's phenomenal material. You're talking about ocean depth here of 1 mile and deeper, all the way to 2-3 miles and so on. What is
so Christian,
Yeah,
sorry, this is near the hydrothermal vent, right? Like where it's very hot, comparably in the bottom of the ocean.
And exactly, Georgia, there's a whole ecosystem there. So right there,
a whole ecosystem of crazy ghost spiders.
Yeah, it's so dark. So it's different to what we call, as you know, photosynthesis, where you get energy from the sun. And you break down some chemical energy to give your body energy. As we know, this is chemosynthesis. Okay, so it's purely chemical, and it goes through sulfur, so it's inorganic. Very interesting. So what is interesting is these creatures that you see down there, they live in the vicinity. They are like the neighbors of a sort of a tiny microvolcano, you could say. And what's so interesting, as you will see, is it's very hot down there. You wouldn't imagine. So what you have to know about water is the boiling temperature is dependent on the pressure, okay? So the higher we go, and Georgia loves mountain climbing much more than I do, but if she went to Mount Everest, the water would boil at much lower temperatures up there, right? But if you go deep into the ocean, the pressure is immense. You're talking about 1,000 bars or so. So the temperature has to go at least to 350 degrees Celsius. I don't have the conversion here to Fahrenheit, but that is 3 times or 3.5 times the boiling point temperatures that we are used to.
482 degrees Fahrenheit.
Thank you, Georgia. So that's very high, right? In order to boil. So who can survive right there? Well, there's a whole ecosystem around there. So these are specialized bacteria that can live in this vicinity, which is amazing. So the sulfur that comes out, something happens. And now comes the amazing story about quite an amazing woman that I just want to tell you.
And how deep is this again? Do you know? You said it's a mile.
This is 1 mile and deeper. This is crazy. I mean, this is crazy pressure, right? This is crazy. So there's a whole ecosystem. You saw these funny sort of crab-like things walking around there. And now we're going to go to some vent. This is so fascinating. And this is all hydrogen sulfide that is being released there, and that is being converted to energy. So they didn't know how. And they find these long tube worms there. They're about 1 meter long, so 3.5 foot long, right? Sometimes taller even than a human being. So what they did is they took one of these worms and brought it to a worm specialist. I don't remember what the gentleman's name was. And he looked at it and he said, well, I know worms very well. But when he opened it, he found pure sulfur in there. And he was giving a lecture there. And it was a very long-winded lecture, as long as the worm was. So the story goes. And there was a very clever graduate student in there. And he said, well, I opened it up. and I found sulfur in there, and we don't quite understand how this toxic material, what's going on there. And she just rushed up and she said, I know what this is. Well, she just sparked off and she said, this is a symbiote. Excuse me. I have to drink some water.
You're fine. A symbiotic relationship, right? I believe.
That's it. A chemosynthetic symbiotic relationship. That's the word. What a phrase, right? So chemosynthesis, it's release of energy through chemicals. That's what it means. And symbiosis is the living of bacteria inside these tube worms that are helping break down the rather toxic hydrogen sulfide and releasing it to energy together with oxygen. It's incredible. That's what it's about.
Yeah, or symbiosis, it can be any animals or any organisms living in close relationship, to be clear. But in this case, it's bacteria, you said, and the worm.
Yes, so these bacteria are, and then the bacteria again survive through these tube worms, and the tube worms survive through the bacteria. Life just finds incredible, ingenious solutions everywhere. That's what I found so fascinating. And again, once that was discovered, they actually found so many extreme life forms, and that goes right into the universe. David Dunn will love this. And this is, of course, where all the hypotheses come from at the moment. Could it be meteorites that brought in life under very extreme conditions that we cannot even imagine? And they've tested this actually on the next topic that we're going to have on tardigrades. Okay.
Yeah. And real quick, as we're switching from the tardigrades, I just want to say, welcome to all the people in the audience. We have Belinda and Irina. Thank you for the stars, Irina, on Facebook. And Susan North. And again, David Dunn, thanks for the donation on YouTube. Amanda Price, Gentleman Ghost, Lynn. We have so many people tuning in today. I'm so excited to see it. Yeah. So, and I don't think we have any outstanding questions though. No. Okay. So tell us about this gentleman.
This gentleman. This is most fascinating. I've heard about them, but I actually, one day I would actually like to look at them under the microscope, because then you really know what you're talking about. So I'm just talking about something I read that I would like to do. So I just have to, I just have to say that before I start. So these tardigrades are, and I'm sure many of you have heard of them, but if you've seen them underneath the microscope, please shout out, because you know quite a lot then, okay? So whoever has seen a tardigrade underneath a microscope, just give me a shout, because they're actually everywhere, right? So what's so fascinating about them is tardigrades, yes, they're outer space suit, isn't it, Frankman? They look like so much from outer space. And there are over 1,000 species known of tardigrades, so many different varieties. And what's interesting is, what do you think their lifespan is? How long do they live? Well,
I actually don't know.
What do you think, Georgia? What do you think?
You're going to make me take a guess.
Doesn't
People
matter.
in the audience also take a guess, so I don't feel so alone. I have no idea. It's kind of embarrassing.
That's okay. Well, it's not embarrassing.
Okay,
I don't know.
Wait, let me guess. I'm
guess.
going to say, well, it's hard. It must be highly variable, because I know that they can survive really cold temperatures. And I'd imagine that if they're in really cold temperatures, maybe they can live longer, right? Because they're almost kind of cryogenically frozen.
Yes. You're getting right onto it. That's great.
So
absolutely. Yes.
I would say I'm gonna go out on a limb. Maybe they could even live 30 years or something if they're frozen. Probably, I'll say 20 years. 30?
It's much longer, to hundreds of years. We don't.
Wait, how do we know that?
Yes, and we don't know enough about it again.
Okay.
This is incredible. And Frankman is asking a relevant question: how do they even die? Well, this is interesting. So let me go a little bit into details. So first of all, they are defined as water bears, which is very cute. They don't actually swim; they sort of walk. They just sort of walk. Let me get this. And what's interesting, you see this here. So my understanding is they actually have photoreceptors. They can see, but it's a single cell. How ingenious is that? It's a single cell, two single cells that act as eyes, right? So it's not eyes in our sense, but they have photoreceptors. And they have a nervous system, they have a brain. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. How large are they? Well, typically from about 100 microns to 1 millimeter, so 1,000 microns. That's their typical size range, right? So I'll also answer Frank's question in a moment. I just wanted to bring up a movie. If you want to comment anything, Georgia, just jump
Yeah, well, I
in.
was gonna say, I think someone asked early on, I think maybe it was Frankman, if this episode was about extremes of hot and cold or just other extremes as well. Because I think because at the same time you were also talking about like the extreme water pressure under the ocean by these
Yes,
thermal vents.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And so it is mainly about
Absolutely.
hot and cold, but there
Right.
are some other extremes that come
Yes.
into play. Like, yeah, when you go deep down in the water, you also have extreme pressure. And this tardigrade is pooping, by the way.
It's
It's
fascinating.
pooping the most tremendous poop.
Its poop is as big as its whole body. This is incredible. Quite
Yeah, play
fascinating.
that again. Play that again. But
Yeah.
I wanted to say, yeah, like also these tardigrades, they can survive really hot temperatures, they can survive really cold temperatures, and they can, you might have heard that they can survive in space even, which
Yes.
as David Dunn has
Exactly.
talked about on his show before, there's also a lot of radiation that you're exposed to in space when you don't have the atmosphere protecting you. And so these tardigrades can survive extreme temperatures and extreme radiation levels. And I found actually an article about how they survived the radiation. There was where was this study done? I believe this study was published in the journal
Hmm.
eLife.
Hmm.
I don't remember the name of it, but basically they
Hmm.
have some protein that they make, and the protein like binds to their DNA inside the cell, and that protein binding to the DNA is what protects the DNA from being degraded by the radiation somehow. The protein that suppresses this radiation
Uh-huh.
damage is called DSUP, DSUP.
So as you correctly hinted, they can survive from temperatures almost from absolute zero in space, which is insane. So NASA actually sent the tardigrades into space and they came back under extreme conditions. They can survive extreme radiation. That's incredible. Extreme pressure. And you know, Frankman, as you said correctly, you don't usually have one extreme circumstance without the other. So extreme cold you usually have with very low pressure, and extreme heat you'll have with very high pressure. So they all go together, right? So pressure and temperature are usually very much related. Oxygen is related. That's another extreme, right? Water. So, for example, if they get deprived of water, they're usually in water, but it can be a very thin film of water, and they can survive with the water drying out. So what they do is they just sort of go into a small bowl, and then exactly like what Georgia hinted, you deprive them of oxygen. Oh, come on, sorry. Sorry about that. You deprive them of oxygen, or you deprive them of anything else. They go into a bowl, and their metabolic rate goes down to 1/10,000th of what it 1/10,000th they can survive.
Wow.
That explains why they can survive over 100 years and possibly longer. And what Gentleman Ghost was referring to or asking, now we get some commercials, of course. Sorry about that. Sorry, will be
That's funny.
that's I can't help that. But what Gentleman Ghost was referring to is, are they studying this? Sorry, we are at the next episode. This is not what I
Get
wanted.
rid of that. Yeah, so I
But I'm
mean, while
sorry.
you get rid of that, I guess I'll try to answer some of these
Yeah,
questions.
you
So
go.
size, I mean, some of this stuff certainly potentially can be helpful in understanding
Hmm.
things that are applicable to humans. Like, it would be really cool if we could freeze ourselves, right? Unfortunately, our tremendous size, especially compared to teeny, like little tardigrades, our tremendous size can be a big problem because it's hard to sort of like cool our body quickly at the same rate. And so you get like some part, like your arms get frostbitten, but your core temperature is still quite high. So, kind of like bigger animals can present some challenges. Not that those couldn't be overcome, potentially. But I think that's like why maybe in movies, if you're getting cryogenically frozen, you usually have like some tubes going into you or something. They're like, you know, like shooting like or like some like freeze stuff throughout your body so you freeze at the same time or something. But some of this, in a more immediate sense, some of this research is used, for example, to help keep organs really cold. Like if you're trying to keep an organ cold for an organ transplant, so preserving organs so that they can be donated, like more likely to remain in good condition and be donated or something after an accident or something like that. So that I think is one of the most immediate applications of this type of research to humans. Yeah.
And that's a very good point. And Frankman was now asking, are these creatures invincible, these tardigrades? Will they? I think they will survive us for a long time. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. However, they're not invincible. They're very vulnerable. There's this whole ecosystem going on. I don't know. As a child, I played around with this hydra. I don't know if you did, Georgia. You know, these hydra, these. You know, I had them
Oh,
in a
the
small,
water
yeah, the water.
monkeys
I had a
or
small
sea monkeys.
microscope,
Yeah.
exactly, and they're fascinating. That's, for example, a predator of the tardigrades, because if they get on there, they can, you know, these little tentacles can kill the tardigrades, and they're tardigrades that feed on other tardigrades, and they are all kinds of other microorganisms that again feed on tardigrades. So they are not at all invincible. They're just invincible or seemingly invincible when they're on their own in extreme environments. At the same time, we have to say they are actually not extremophiles. So they're not really interested in extreme environments. Unlike us, they can survive in extreme environments, but we like a certain temperature and a certain environment, and so they do. So do they. Okay.
Yeah, and we, of course, as humans, are all endotherms, which means like we can produce our own body heat via
Mm-hmm.
metabolism. So we can kind of keep like a warm environment even when our external environment is cold. Um, and you know, animals that are considered ectotherms, which is like their body temperature varies more with the environment, but they can come up with some ways to control their body temperature. Like dragonflies will like flap their wings really quickly, and that like muscle movement will create warmth. And there's also like behavioral things you can do to like change your body temperature if you're an ectotherm, like going
Mm-hmm.
out and laying on a sunny rock, for example. Um, but yeah, maybe we should talk about, well, I guess getting back to, I guess, gentleman ghost's question about if this stuff can apply to humans. So tardigrades can be deep frozen, but the largest animal that can survive like these super cold, you know, hundreds of degrees below Fahrenheit temperatures, the largest animal that can survive that so far is the fruit fly. So maybe we should pull up a
Okay.
picture of one of
So
the
now
fruit.
it's your turn, Georgia. Like, go to. So do you want to? Is this the image you're looking for,
Um,
or do you want?
yes, yeah, that's it. So
Okay.
this fruit fly, which this species is, oh boy, it's a particular. There are many species of fruit fly, as
Of
you may or
course,
may not
it's
know,
always like that.
and this one is, oh gosh, I've lost the name. It starts with a C. It's not Drosophila,
Do you
so a
want me
lot
to
of fruit
help you
flies.
and get
I'm
the
gonna look
link?
it up right
No,
now.
I can give this to you. If does this
It's
help you here, or is it just I don't know which one. Frozen fruit fly. This one.
cry. It should be,
This one.
yeah. Should start with a C. Its
With
scientific
a
name, but you know
C.
I can't read it. I can't
Oh,
read
it
the
says
name.
cryoprotectant, but that's not what it is. No, it's not.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be
Okay. Oh, here it
cry.
is.
Gosh.
I'm going to zoom in for you. Wait a second.
Okay, or
Let's.
you can even just try to read it for me.
Okay. Oh my God, I don't blame you. Chimomyza Kostak. Okay, I'm going to copy this and put this into the chat so everybody can try and pronounce this in the
Oh,
meantime.
I found it. Yeah, Chimomyza costata. I'll just put it in the chat so everyone can see. So this is like the superhero fruit fly.
Okay, you do that. That's fine.
Um, yeah, so these guys can survive liquid nitrogen. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. And so Basically, the big problem
Liquid
that
nitrogen, that's crazy. Minus
yeah,
179 Celsius,
yeah.
whatever that. Yeah, that's crazy.
It's
Okay.
nuts. And they can't survive there very long, actually, because they're not meant to live in that cold of an environment. So I think this is a good moment to sort of step back and say, okay, those animals that we were just talking about, a lot of them were actually really like adapted to kind of always live at these hot temperatures. These fruit flies in this particular example, they can survive like a really intense cold snap, but they wouldn't be able to survive like in an environment at these conditions regularly. They just sort of happen to be able to like withstand this. Um, and it turns out that, so like basically, yeah, you can put these adults in liquid nitrogen and their survival rate is, I think it's not like super high, but they can survive and be kind of thawed out and come active again. And so there's a few things that you can do to like increase their survival rate though. So first is that like, as you may know, fruit flies have different life cycles, and there's actually another picture of like
Okay.
a different species of fruit fly that has like the larvae and stuff on there. Yeah, that go to
This
the
one, huh?
right one. No, go to
Oh,
the
this
right.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Here you
yeah.
go. Okay.
So like these are adult fruit flies on the top, and then like different sort of stages or conditions of their larvae on the bottom. And basically, the adults are not as good at surviving the cold temperatures as the
Okay.
larvae are.
Makes
So they
sense, doesn't
have
it?
like a higher death rate when they get cold. Um, and part of that is because they're just like bigger. Um, and and so a lot of times for the insects, the overwintering like phase is the larval phase because like you can have a little larvae, you can be buried down in the soil where the temperature is a little bit more buffered or whatever. Um, and like basically what these insects have to do to survive cold temperatures is like the problem is that water freezes at cold temperatures. Frozen water is bigger than liquid water. Life, all animals, plants, whatever, are composed largely of water, right? And so, like, literally, you have your cells potentially exploding because, like, the water that's in them is freezing or freezing around them, and cell membranes are getting, torn apart. So, one strategy that insects use is to basically like export water out of themselves so you can be like
Right.
drier if you're a larvae because then if you don't have as much water in you like freezing then it doesn't create as many problems basically. I hope that makes sense to everyone. I'm
Yeah,
like taking
Georgia, I'm just
a big
curious
question.
because, I mean,
Hmm.
that it's great. The question I would have is, liquid nitrogen is extremely cold. It's not a condition you would find
Yeah.
anywhere on Earth. So, first of all, why did they do such an extreme? I mean, that's so extreme.
You would have to ask them. And yeah, personally, so I did find another study
Yeah.
where they talked about measuring cold tolerance in
Yes.
insects. And these sort of extreme experiments don't necessarily correlate to how well insects are at surviving winter, for example. Part of it is like it's like a cold snap instead of like a long,
Hmm.
prolonged period of cold. So I think that like part of the thing with liquid nitrogen is it allowed scientists to look at in the lab, like they were actually like feeding these not in this study, but in the previous one, they were feeding these fruit flies like different diets and seeing if that affected their ability to like do cold freeze stuff based on like the cellular mechanisms that were happening. Like, can we help facilitate certain cellular processes that allow them to better survive the cold? So I think like the lab offers some advantage in that context, but it has its limitations, right, in terms of like how well it translates to natural systems.
Sure,
And
but
so
does one know how long they actually survived in this? Do you have any
I
indication? I,
think that it was just for like a few. It was on the order of magnitude of hours, not days, I
Hours?
believe,
That
for
is
the liquid.
long. No,
For
so
the
I thought
liquid,
seconds because hours is long,
no
Georgia.
longer than
Ooh,
hours. I should say that.
ooh,
Here, I can
that is
look.
amazing.
So
That's
yeah, for
amazing.
a few hours. Yeah.
Right.
So it is pretty good. So like there's a couple ways um that they can survive, right? So they can be dry. Sometimes animals that can survive these really freezing temperatures, they actually export water out of their body so that they don't have to deal with it freezing as much. And then some like plants, actually, I think they like stiffen their cell walls. That way the cells can like withstand the ice better. It's called cold hardening. And that's a term that's used for insects and plants and maybe other animals beyond insects that survive cold temperatures. So cold hardening helps their cell membranes stay intact despite the ice. And we
By
do
the
have
way,
like a really
David Dunn,
appropriate.
I'll just read
Go
you.
ahead,
David
yeah.
Dunn has a funny comment here. It really
Yeah.
gets cold near the bottom of the deep ocean, I suppose. But what are fruit flies doing there?
Yeah, no, these fruit flies, I mean, there are fruit flies in areas with winter, right? So yeah, we've transitioned into the land. And I mean, speaking of things on land, oh yeah, Amanda Price had a comment. I would have guessed it was something a little bigger, like a frog. So Amanda, you're right that there are these frogs that survive like regular winter conditions. So like maybe, like I don't know, like, minus 20 Celsius or something. This is liquid nitrogen, which is like minus, like, I don't even know what
I
that is,
think it's
like minus like 3.
176, if I remember correctly from my son. I think it's minus 176 Celsius. Yeah, David Dunn says it's 74 Kelvin. Yeah, I think if I
This says
calculate my
190,
correct,
yeah,
that was
minus
mine.
196
It's
Celsius.
minus
Yeah.
196. I'm sorry, I got it wrong. It's minus
Yeah, no, I just looked it
196.
up in the paper. Yeah.
It's
So
196.
yeah,
Yeah,
Amanda,
yeah.
you're right that there's bigger animals that can survive freezing temperatures like 0 Celsius and lower. And here it is. So yeah, transitioning. So now the temperature is not quite as an extreme cold, but the animal that can survive it is a little bigger. And so this is a wood frog.
Uh-huh.
Um, and they're known for, yeah, basically being able to freeze, um, to like survive these freezing temperatures. And this is a frog that, I should clarify, it's alive, or it is alive now, and it's going to continue to be alive, but it hasn't like thawed out yet. And how these frogs, part of the cellular like mechanisms that they use to survive freezing temperatures is that they have basically a type of like antifreeze in their body that like these chemicals that prevent ice from forming in their body. Because once again, it would be extremely problematic to have ice forming like inside your body. It'd be really hard for that not to cause a lot of anatomical, physiological damage. Um, so yeah, so here's the wood frog, and you'll notice it's in the leaves. So they hang out in, environments that are a little bit sheltered down in the leaves. And we had a previous episode on building a better backyard for wildlife. And
Yes,
one of the things
exactly.
we talked about, do you
Yeah.
remember, Christian? What
Uh,
relates
I
to
don't know.
leaves?
Sorry, bud.
To leaves, like what? So if you want to have a wildlife friendly backyard, what should you do with your leaves? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, leave them, of course. Do not take them. I mean, that's the main thing. That's very anti-German, by the way. I was brought up to remove everything we find.
Yeah. No, leave the leaves. That's what we have. That's what I have to say. Because it's important for animals, especially a lot of animals that overwinter. So this frog is overwintering in the leaves. Some bats do, a lot of insects do. So leave your leaves in the winter and animals can get down in there. Frankman asked, do the frogs stay mobile in that state? No. So it's like in an extreme form of torpor or hibernation right now, we might say, where its core body temperature is dropped. I don't know if you can tell that well from this picture, but there's other pictures too where like literally it is like frozen on the outside.
It is.
Christian, I think there's like another frozen frog picture that might show it a little bit better.
Okay. Okay.
Or just to look at
I have this one, but
Oh yeah,
that's
so this one,
tiny. Wait a minute, this is
can we
tiny.
zoom in? Yeah. So
Oh
this is
God.
what they look like
That's
when they're
yeah.
not
Mm,
frozen.
mm.
Yeah. So they're relatively little frogs. Oh yeah, go to the bottom row.
The bottom. Sorry, you mean the next
Go
image?
back to the next picture,
Oh, I
yeah,
see.
please.
Okay.
Where it's like
This
on
one.
the,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, isn't that nuts? I mean, so the thing is just
Mm.
frozen.
Mm-hmm.
On the outside of its body has a lot of ice forming and stuff. So yeah, to summarize, we have talked about quite a few different ways that animals collectively can survive hot or cold temperatures. So we've seen that they can form symbiotic relationships with other species to help buffer the temperature. We've seen different types of adaptations. So
Hmm.
like, cell at the sort of cellular level, ways to survive this. Um, yeah, including like the radiation with the water bear. There's getting yourself dried out, right? Water can be very problematic when it's frozen. All life obviously needs water, but um, yeah, having like ice that expands in size literally is kind of problematic.
But I
Um,
would also summarize
mhm.
I mean, this is just a very superficial biology statement that I'm making here. But what is evident to me is the smaller the size, the larger seems the diversity and the possibility to survive under extreme conditions, and also the more complex the organism is, like the human being is, the more sensitive we are. Right? Something like that, at
Yeah,
least. Yeah.
that's a good point too. So like in some senses, complexity is a little bit of a liability,
Yeah.
right? Where I guess like part of it's kind of weird to think about because like part of the complexity is that we have more control over like movement and we can control our environment a little bit better. Like I can put on a coat. We can manufacture coats. We can, burn energy
Hmm.
for fuel and stuff like that to stay warm. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. And when you say complex, you mean like how many cells do you have, like being
Yes.
multicellular and stuff like that? Yeah. Because you did mention like some of those worms are bigger than people are, right? Um,
Yeah, but they are very simple because they still are tube worms. They don't have a mouth and an anus. Like,
yeah.
they're just simple. I don't. There's a name for that. I forgot what it is. But it's a very simple type of worm. It's just so large in order to I think that the size there came merely in order to properly convert the hydrogen sulfide to sulfur and so on, and to have a lot of absorption area, as a tube inside the skin where the bacteria are. They also, as far as I understand, I think they even have they have a blood flow in there. That's incredible. You have hydrogen sulfide transported through the blood. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
but they're also very skinny, right? So
They're
just because
very
they're like
skinny.
very
Yes,
tall, yeah, they're
yes.
not like bigger than we are in another sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's fascinating. I mean, there's really where there's an extreme, there's also life. It's the other way. It's not what I used to think or brought up with. Life is very sensitive. I have more the feeling, there's very little we know about the extreme sides, right? And we might find a lot of surprises still. Yeah.
Yeah. I am curious. I'm starting to think about like we have talked about other extremes, right?
Hmm.
So we had that episode Flying High where we
Oh
talked
yes.
about,
Oh
yeah, like
yes.
when you go high altitude, you have a couple problems. There's not very much
That's
oxygen,
it.
and also
Good.
the air pressure there's really low pressure, and that
Hmm.
low pressure makes it harder for the existing oxygen to get
Exactly.
sort of pushed through your like lung membranes.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, no, you got that well. That was Mike Sears who was here in the studio with me and was fascinating. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on that note, we're going to take a little aside if you don't mind, Christian, and if you all you audience members don't mind, and present that we have a Humans and Wildlife website up and functioning where
Oh,
you can go and find all our past episodes. Yeah, I'll
okay.
put the link. I can maybe
Yeah, just
share.
put the link in, and then I will.
Yeah.
One
And
second.
I think we've also done where I've shared my screen in the past, but now I don't remember how to.
Okay, wait a second. We'll just go up again,
Yay.
um, and just yeah. Wait a minute. Let me just try and get the link in quickly. It's a good comment, and it's something that I completely forgot to put in.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I
just one.
was gonna say, because we got through our like cold and hot material a little bit quickly. I should have done like you did and find more videos. I was in charge of the cold survival stuff. And you know what? I think it just doesn't translate to videos as well either, right? Because like really cold things are just like frozen and there's nothing to see.
No, that's okay. One second. Let me just get us back here. Where did I? One second. Let me just get us out here.
Oh
There.
yeah.
And
So I'll put the I'll put the link in the chat for everyone too, so
Yeah.
that you can go
Oh,
there
now
and see
Georgia's
for
double. Wait
yourself.
a second. Yeah.
Da, da,
What did I
da.
do? I don't know why you're
Oh,
double. Oh, there.
Frankman says he's seen the website already. So wow,
Okay.
there's a big question mark
Yeah,
in the
sorry
corner.
about that. It's going. Like, it's
Is that part of the website? Is
no,
that
no,
something?
no, no, no. No, here it
Yeah.
is. Anyway, here's the website. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's mainly thanks to Georgia, by the way. Really, thank you for doing this website. So it's really her. And yeah, I think you should. I wish you could navigate through this because we have all our episodes on there, right?
Yeah, so go to, well, there, many of the episodes are on there, not all of them yet. But if you go, yeah, you can click on the episodes
Mm-hmm.
button there or whatever. Um, so and there they are. Right now it's like a little bit awkward of a format where you have to click and then click again on the episode. But yeah, you can see if you want to click on episode 32, the field trip,
Yeah. Oh,
and then you have
nice.
to click view episode at the bottom, that little
Oh,
blue,
yeah. View
yeah, it's kind of
episode,
awkward.
and there you go.
And there you go. So yeah, I did last week. I did do last
Wow.
week solo because Christian was off partying at the doctor's office, I believe.
I was partying. Yeah,
Partying at the
right. It
doctor's
was the
office.
dentist. It was the dentist. Yeah.
Dentist, excuse me. And I yeah, I did it solo, and guess what? It's gonna be that way next week too, because Christian is gonna go party for real somewhere more worthwhile of
Uh,
partying than the
yeah,
dentist
this
this
time I'm
time.
going to Mexico because, well, we need some heat, honestly. So I will be gone for a week to Mexico, and
You're not as cold tolerant as the wood frogs and the
no,
fruit
I'm
flies.
a tardigrade. I like both L temperatures. You know. No. Anyway, no, I
Yeah.
would. Okay.
So
Yeah. So.
yeah, so take a look. One of the things that we try to do, especially for episodes as
Mhm.
we go along, is call out like the episode highlights.
Ah, right.
So like
Okay.
linking to particular times in the episode that were like particularly good or exciting. Um, so yeah, like if
Frankman
you,
has already seen it. Isn't it amazing? So
I know, it's
I'm
amazing. Did we talk about
impressed.
it in the
I'm very
previous?
impressed.
Yeah. Um,
Okay.
I think, yeah, like if you go down to like eating insects, that's one that definitely it's
Eating.
on
Ah,
the
there we are.
right.
Here, this one.
Yeah.
Yes. Click on
That
that
one
one.
has some like episode call outs.
Okay. View episode.
Yeah.
Oh, Georgia's done a lot of work here. Thank you. That's really very nice. So, yeah.
Maybe.
Hmm.
Well, maybe I didn't do it for this one. Anyways, that's it's really nice. You can see it. And if we like I tried to also link to resources that we mentioned in the show. So if there were things we ever talked about that we like put the link in the chat, I tried to include the link in the episode description too here. So it's hopefully easier for people to find that. This episode, when I put it up, I'm gonna include, the links to the papers that we had and stuff like that. So it'll be like a good place to go and find stuff. And who knows, maybe we'll even start like posting episodes ahead of time when we figure
Yes,
them out.
that would and eventually maybe try and fund the channel a little bit like our own sort of Patreon channel for this, where we will give exclusive episodes and so on. So that would be something.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So.
one thing I would
Hmm.
really like to
Hmm.
do um, is I would really like to get the money for. There's a couple things.
Hmm.
It would be really cool to have like a GoPro or something, or any kind of like camera that's like stable, so that like it's not like recording with your
Hmm.
cell phone, right? And that would help like when I'm out doing field work and stuff, that I
Hmm.
could record what we're doing, or even like give the camera to students, and they can record what's happening. But that's the kind of thing that's like it can be sort of pricey, so we might try to start some crowdfunding thing or something like that. And another thing, and this is like getting into just like things I dream about, but Christian, you might have good input as a
Hmm.
camera person. I would love to get really good night vision goggles,
Yep.
or like heat sensitive goggles that you
Yes.
can record to, and then we could like watch bats as they're flying around and stuff, because it's so tricky to measure behavior or even just see behavior for a lot of animals. Um,
Yes, and
I,
we can do that. I've worked with thermal cameras before, and they've become so much better and also cheaper. So yes, it can be done. Hmm.
yeah, definitely. I think all that stuff would be really cool to document.
Yeah, you're right. There's so many fascinating things, huh?
Mhm. Yeah, so
Okay.
well, as we're wrapping up here, I guess we can give a little bit of preview for next week.
Yeah, that's for
Um,
you to do, Georgia.
yeah, so next week it will be me and my guest,
Mhm.
Tristan McKnight, Dr. Tristan McKnight, who's an entomologist. I know that we have a lot of eagle fans of the channel, but we also have a lot of insect fans. So it'll be an insect focused episode. And Tristan is, let me look up the name of the class
By the
again.
way,
Tristan,
David Dunn, I want to read that out loud. He says, "Good
oh, go
luck
ahead.
submitting your thesis, Georgia."
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
My
big
thesis is
thing.
due tomorrow, my PhD dissertation. Yeah. So I've been writing and writing and writing, and I was writing before this, and I'm about to get off and just keep writing. But yeah, oh, in the next couple of weeks, I'm gonna be Dr. Auteri. If fingers crossed, if
Ah,
all
this
goes
is going,
well.
yeah, will be a
I
big
want to celebrate
celebration.
ahead of time.
It'll be
But
great.
yeah, and so I actually it's kind of fitting our guest next week,
Hmm.
Tristan, he did his PhD in the same lab. So when I started, he was a PhD student here, and he is now a professor at um, Arizona. Yes, the University of Arizona. And one of the classes he teaches is Busy Bees and Fancy Fleas, How
Hmm.
Insects Shaped Human History. And so he's going to talk about insects in human history, and particularly the potato beetle, a species
Hmm.
called the potato beetle, and how it was once used in Russian propaganda against the United States. Very interesting topic, I think. I'm excited and timely for other
Timely.
news related.
Yeah, that's a long topic. Yes, you're right. Okay, that's good. That's very good. So yeah, so Georgia, anyway, really, really good luck, as David Dunn was saying, with the thesis, handing it in. It's a big step. So I'll be gone next week, and then the week after I'm back, and then I will go to Australia, and we might run some episodes from Australia. Actually, we might do that.
Well,
So.
you'll be in Australia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But we'll find a way. We'll find a way to do all these things. Okay, we will.
Yeah, definitely. So, if you are wanting to make sure to tune in for next week, I don't know since Christian's gone if we'll be able to stream through this YouTube channel. So
Yes.
definitely bookmark like the Humans and Wildlife website and or keep
Hmm.
tabs on it, and I'm going to post there like the links to the show at the very least. Hopefully you'll get some other things going too, and we might try still emailing the links out to the email list that
Yeah.
Christian sent
Yes. And
out
if you would like to
after.
be added, because I will, Georgia shares the email list with me, zassefoto@gmail.com. Just send me an email if you would like to be added to the list. So that gives us more flexibility also for Georgia to run shows independently, which is really good. Okay. So
Yeah.
we'll do that. Good.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for everyone. It was great to see everyone's comments, and it always just makes the show feel great to have so many people participating and stuff. And yeah, I'll see you all next week, hopefully.
Yes,
Bye.
thank you very much, and let's hope for some calm weather, no, nothing extreme like we see now, and all the best. And yeah, I'll be back in 2 weeks.